Thank you for joining Wars of the Rosies. As we continue with part 2, an event of mystical significance from the mystical interpretation of Easter by Max Heindel. Chapter 2, an event of mystical significance. Whither I go, thou canst not follow me now, but thou shalt follow me afterwards. He that believe on me, the works that I do, he shall do also, and greater works than these shall he do. John 13:36, 14:12. Were we to attend an Orthodox church on Easter Sunday, we should probably hear the story of Jesus, the Son of God, who had been immaculately conceived, and who, at the age of 30 years, took up a ministry which lasted for 3 years and terminated in crucifixion and death for us, that through his blood we might be saved. We should probably also be told that on Easter Day he rose again from the dead and later ascended to the Father, where he is now seated at the right hand of the majesty of God. Thence he shall return to judge the living and the dead at the last resurrection. But while we know, because of our ability to read the memory of nature, that Jesus did live and die, that he had a mystic mission of the very greatest importance to human evolution, and that the main events of that great life took place substantially as set forth in the gospel, we know also that the mission of the mystic Christ is sometimes infinitely more glorious than ever entered into the hearts of those who know only the orthodox interpretation of the Gospels. The Feast of the Resurrection, which we call Easter, is, in the first place, not simply the resurrection of an individual, but a cosmic event. It would be bullish in the extreme to celebrate the death and resurrection of an individual, which must have taken place on a certain day of the year, by a feast that is movable and determined by the position of the sun and moon in the zodiacal sign of Aries, the ram or lamb. Each year a spiritual wave of vitality enters the earth at the winter solstice, to impregnate the dormant seeds in the frozen ground, to give new life to the world wherein we live. And this work is done during the winter months, while the sun is passing through the zodiacal signs Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Then it crosses the celestial equator from the southern signs where it has been during the winter months, and this crossover or crucifixion is now cosmically associated with the sun's entrance into the sign Aries, the ram or lamb. Then the sun ascends into the signs of the northern heavens to foster with its warming rays the growth of the seed in the soul, which has been revitalized by the Christic life wave during the winter months. Without that annual mystic wave of vital energy from the cosmic Christ, physical life would be an impossibility. Without that, there would be no physical bread and wine, nor the transubstantiated spiritual tincture prepared by alchemy from the heart blood of the disciple. The Lamb was slain from the foundation of the Aryan world ethic in which we now live. Its blood was the symbol which saved the God-chosen people from death when they left the mythical Egypt, the home of the worship of the bull, Taurus, or Apis. From that day it became idolatry for those who had been saved by the blood of the Lamb to worship the golden calf. For the old religions of the bull, Taurus, had been superseded by the religion of the Lamb, when the sun by precession left the sign of Taurus and entered the celestial sign Aries, the lamb or ram. In the fullness of time, when the sun by precession had reached 7 degrees in the sign of the lamb, Christ came in the body of Jesus to make a new covenant under the seal and symbol of the mystic bread and wine of life. The Lamb of God was about to pass away. It did so individually when Christ left the body of Jesus, and cosmically when the sun by procession left the sign Aries, the lamb. A new sign had to be given to those who were to be messengers during the coming Piscean age. Hence, he himself at that Last Supper represented the sacrificial lamb. The bread of life and living water were given as symbols of his body and his blood to be used during the coming age in remembrance of him. There is, therefore, a connection between the mystic wine and the blood, also between the mystic bread and the body, which we should understand if we would know the true significance of the mystic death and resurrection. Appropriate food had been given to aid each of the vehicles of man in their evolution. A vehicle such as our physical body, composed of chemical compounds, can be nourished only on a chemical substance. Likewise, by analogy, only spirit can act on spirit, and therefore, wine was added to the diet of man to aid him to break up the heavenly molecules of flesh and stimulate him in the battle of existence. This is told in the story of Noah, Genesis 9:2-20, who, with his followers, represents humanity in the rainbow age, where a so-called mixed diet and wine furnish the nourishment needed for the present phase of evolution. Fortified by the flesh-fed mind and the spirit of alcohol, man has wandered further and further away from the path of brotherhood. For while he feeds upon the food of the carnivora, he necessarily becomes ferocious as a beast of prey and preys upon all of his fellow men by instinct. The system of inbreeding and marrying in the clan tied him very firmly to his fellow tribesmen. However, he did at least show love for them. Since international marriages have came in vogue and he is becoming emancipated from the race spirit in a measure, he preys upon all men, even upon his own family. There are no bounds of selfishness. Nothing is sacred from greed, and each human being lives in economic fear of all others. Moreover, the cup that cherishes does so only at times. There is no rest, no lasting peace, or happiness on the path of passion and self-gratification. Therefore, there comes a time when man desires lasting cessation from sorrow more than anything else, and commences to seek the path of peace, which is also the path of purity and self-abnegation. Then he is instructed in the mystery of Golgotha, of the cleansing blood and the rose cross as follows. Cleansing the blood from egotism is the mystery of Golgotha. It commenced when the blood of Jesus flowed. It has continued through the wars of Christian nations, whenever men fought for an ideal, and will last until the horrors of war by contrast have sufficiently impressed mankind with the beauty of brotherhood. Beneath us in the scale of evolution are the plants and animals. Above us are the gods. Anatomically, we belong to the animals, and in our past lives we have lived beneath our status. Like the animals, we have gratified our sex desire and our appetite. But while they were held in restraint by a wise group spirit, we have exercised no control over our appetites. Hence, sickness, sorrow, and suffering have become our portion. Now we aspire to tread the path of peace to the serene bliss of the gods. To attain that, we must become like the plants, which are pure and passionless. Consider the ancient Athenian mystic temple, also called the tabernacle in the wilderness, when, under that bygone dispensation, flesh offered for sin was burned on the altar of sacrifice. The stench rose to heaven, attesting the nauseating nature of transgression, of passion and impurity. But within the tabernacle itself stood the seven-branched candlestick, where the essence of olives burned without disagreeable odor. All flesh had been conceived in passion and sin, but the generation of the plant is pure and immaculate. Therefore, the fragrant flower, particularly the red rose, stands in direct symbolic opposition to tainted flesh. The flower is the generative organ of the plant, and it tells us that the immaculate concept in love and purity is the path to peace and progress. Christ, in the final session with his disciples, took the cup as the symbol of the new covenant, gave them the bread to eat, which symbolized his body, the cup symbolizing his blood. This was no ordinary cup in which any liquid might be poured, nor was it the liquid alone which had the potency necessary to ratify the new covenant. The mystery lies in the fact that the cup and its contents were integral and necessary parts of one sublime whole. and the Latin name for this mystic cup was calyx. In Greek it was called paterion. Under the ancient dispensation, water alone was used in the temple service, but in time, wine became a factor in human evolution. A god of wine, Bacchus, was worshipped, and orgies of the wildest nature were held in order to drown the aspiring spirit, that it might apply itself to conquer the physical world. Even under the Mosaic dispensation, the priest had been strictly forbidden to use wine while officiating in the temple. But Christ, on his first public appearance, changed water to wine, ratifying its use in the order of things then existent. Note, however, that this was done in public and that it was his first act as a public minister. But at the last esoteric session of the Christ with his disciples, where the covenant was given, there was no flesh of a lamb, Aries, as required under the Mosaic order. Neither was there the wine, but only the bread, a vegetable product, and the cup, of which we shall presently speak when we have noted his words at the time. I will no more drink of the fruit of the vine until I drink it with you, new in the kingdom of heaven. The newly pressed juice of the grape does not contain a spirit of fermentation and decay, but is a pure nutritious plant food, and thus the followers of the esoteric doctrine have been instructed by Christ to use non-flesh, non-alcoholic food. It has generally been supposed that the cup used by the Christ at the Last Supper contained wine, though as a matter of fact there is no biblical foundation for that supposition. 3 accounts are given for the preparation for this Passover. While Mark and Luke state that the messengers were told to go into a certain city and look for a man who carried a pitcher of water, none of the evangelists say that the cup contained wine. Further research of the memory of nature shows water was used, and that so far as the esotericist was concerned, wine had had its day. From that act dates also the inauguration of the temperance movement, for these cosmic changes involve long preparation in the inner worlds before they become manifest in society outwardly. Thousands of years are as nothing in such processes. The use of water at the Last Supper also harmonizes with the astrological and ethical requirements. The sun was leading Aries, the sign of the lamb, for Pisces, the sign of the fishes, a watery sign. A new note of aspiration was to be sounded. A new phase of human upliftment was to be entered upon during the Piscean age, then approaching. Self-indulgence was to be superseded by self-denial. Bread, the staff of life, which is made from immaculately generated grain, does not feed the passions like flesh. Neither does our blood, when diluted with water, surge so passionately as when wine is imbibed. Therefore, bread and water are fit foods and symbols of ideals during the Piscean Virgo age. They represent purity, and the Catholic Church has given to its followers the Piscean water at the door of the temple and the virginal bread at the altar, denying them the wine cup at the service. But even the foregoing consideration does not bring us to the heart of the mystery hidden in the cup of the new covenant. The old wine cup given to us when we entered Ariana, the land of generation, was filled with destruction, death, and poison, and the world which we then learned to speak is dead and powerless. The new wine cup, mentioned as an ideal for the future epoch, the New Galilee, which is not to be confused with the Aquarian Age, is an etheric organ built within the head and the throat by the unspent sex force, which to the spiritual sight appears as the stem of a flower ascending from the lower part of the trunk. This calyx, or seed cup, is truly a creative organ, capable of speaking the word, life and power. The present word is generated by clumsy muscle motion, which adjusts the larynx, tongue, and lips, so that the air passing from the lungs makes certain sounds. But air is a heavy medium, difficult to move, in comparison with nature's finer forces, like electricity, which moves in the ether. And when this organ has been evolved, it will have the power to speak the word of life, to infuse vitality into substances that were hitherto inert. This organ we are now building by service. You will remember that Christ gave not the cup to the multitude, but to his disciples, who were his messengers and servants of the cross. At the present time, those who drink from the cup of self-abnegation, that they may use the force in the service of others, are building that organ, together with the soul body, which is the wedding garment. They are learning to use it in a small way as invisible helpers when they are out of their bodies at night. For them, they are forced to speak the word of power, which removes disease and builds in healthy tissues. When the Atlantean age was drawing to a close and mankind left its childhood home where it had been under the direct guidance of the divine teachers, the old covenant was made, giving them flesh and wine. And these two, together with the unrestrained use of the sex force, have made the Aryan age an age of death and destruction. We are now drawing to an end of an era. We are looking for the kingdom of heaven, the new Galilee. And in order to prepare us for that time, Christ has given the bread and the water of life, bidding us at the same time not to lust. Having given this new covenant, he went to the cross of liberation, leaving behind him the body of death, to soar away in a vehicle of life, the vital body. He gave his followers the assurance that though they could not follow him then, where he went they should follow later. Everyone is a Christ in the making, and someday will be Easter for each of us. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Rosies. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.